I held my phone, cold and slick with sweat. Its screen was the only source of light in the dark car. It showed a single message from my former colleague. Don't trust anyone. It's a trap. Your sister is in danger. And I was driving straight into that trap, clutching a USB drive that could bring down my husband's financial empire, my perfect husband. Everything had seemed so simple. We had arranged a meeting where I was supposed to hand over everything he was looking for. But I knew that as soon as he got it, he would get rid of me. Just as he had gotten rid of everyone else who stood in his way, I could feel my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst from my chest. I knew I was going to my death, but I had to do it. I had to save my sister. I had to get revenge. And then I remembered how it all started. I remembered our perfect wedding. The sun seemed to have been created just for this day. It generously poured dazzling light onto the rooftop of the Plaza Hotel in New York City, where our wedding reception was being held. The air was filled with the scent of fresh-cut peonies and expensive perfumes, mixed with the sweet fragrance of champagne. Through the huge windows, there was a breathtaking view of Central Park, its autumn gold seeming to be part of the decor. Everything was flawless, flawlessly expensive, flawlessly beautiful. It was a wedding I could never have dreamed of. I, Sophia, a modest but ambitious financial analyst, and James, the heir to one of the city's most influential financial dynasties. When I first met him at a charity gala, I had no idea I would fall so deeply in love. He wasn't just handsome. His blue eyes sparkled with intelligence, and every word he spoke was filled with confidence and calm. He was my opposite, and that was what drew me in. Our first dance, a slow romantic melody, played as we swayed in the center of the ballroom. I felt like the heroine of a movie, and James held me so tightly, as if he was afraid to let go. His Tom Ford suit smelled of freshness and some elusive bitterness. He was smiling at me, his eyes full of happiness. In turn, I felt it was the happiest moment of my life. It was during that dance that someone in the crowd, a stocky man in a dark tuxedo, gently but insistently handed me a sealed envelope. At that very moment, my best friend, Sarah, who was my maid of honor, nudged my shoulder. "Sophia, you look like you're about to die of happiness," she joked, laughing loudly. I smiled at her in embarrassment, and when I turned back to James, the man was gone. He had simply vanished into the crowd. I squeezed the envelope in my hand, feeling its thick, rough paper, and a strange premonition came over me. But I brushed the thought aside, assuming it was just another wedding gift. About an hour later, when the excitement had died down a bit, I went up to my room to rest. I sat on the bed, and my gaze fell on the envelope that I hadn't given to anyone. I opened it, and inside, instead of money, was a USB drive. Next to it was a small note with a single word, trust. I could feel my hands start to tremble. I tried to call James, but he didn't answer. At that same moment, a notification popped up from my former colleague who worked at the same bank. "Don't trust anyone. It's a trap. Your sister is in danger." Just then, there was a persistent knock at my door. The knock on the door was not tentative or polite. It was a sharp, insistent rapping that cut through the silence of the room. My heart, already a frantic drum against my ribs, hammered even faster. The elegant, polished mahogany door seemed like a fragile barrier against a threat I couldn't yet comprehend. I squeezed the USB drive in my hand, its cold metal a grounding presence. The note from my colleague, a cryptic warning that felt like a death sentence, burned in my mind. Don't trust anyone. It's a trap. My breath hitched. I glanced at the phone, then at the door. Who could it be? James? But he hadn't answered my calls. His family? Or someone else entirely? The air in the room, previously filled with the faint, sweet scent of my bridal bouquet, now smelled of cold fear. I tiptoed to the peephole, my silk wedding robe rustling against my legs. My vision was a distorted, fish-eyed view of the hallway. No one. A brief, unsettling moment of relief, followed by another furious knock. "Sophia? It's me, Liam," a voice called out, muffled but clear enough. Liam, a friend of James's, a quiet, almost invisible man who worked on Wall Street. He was the one who handed me the envelope during the dance. A wave of confusion, mixed with a rising sense of dread, washed over me. He was here, at my door, just moments after the message about a trap. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. What did he want? I slowly unlocked the deadbolt, the loud mechanical click echoing in the stillness. I opened the door just a crack, my eyes fixed on his face. He was pale, his eyes wide with a frantic urgency. He wore a simple dark suit, a stark contrast to the tuxedos and ball gowns from the reception. The scent of rain and city asphalt clung to him. He looked over his shoulder as if expecting someone to follow him. "You have to listen to me, Sophia," he whispered, his voice low and urgent. "You can't trust him. The USB drive, it's everything. He set this whole thing up. He's not who you think he is." His words hit me like a physical blow, confirming my worst fears. I instinctively clutched the doorknob, ready to slam the door shut. But before I could react, he pushed the door open, forcing his way into the room. My hand flew to my mouth to stifle a scream. He grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "Listen," he hissed, his eyes pleading. "It's all a game. The marriage, the love, the money. It's all a lie. Your sister is in danger. She's the one who sent that message. He kidnapped her." The words tumbled out of his mouth, each one a sharp shard of glass, cutting into the illusion of my perfect life. My mind reeled. He knew about the message. He knew about my sister. He knew everything. The room spun around me. The beautiful furniture and the stunning view of the park now seemed like a cruel joke. I could feel the cold, hard reality of his words taking root. But who was he? Why was he risking his life to tell me this? What was his motive? Just as I was about to ask, the elevator doors at the end of the hall opened with a gentle ding, and I saw James. James took a slow, deliberate step out of the elevator. He saw Liam holding my arm, saw the frantic look on both our faces, but his expression didn't change. It was a mask of practiced calm, a man who was used to controlling every situation. "Liam," he said, his voice even and low, a master of ceremonies greeting a guest. "What a surprise. I was just about to come looking for you." Liam's face paled. You knew I was coming?" he stammered. "Of course," James replied, his smile widening, but his eyes were like chips of ice. "I know everything. Now let go of my wife, Liam. She's had a long day." Liam's grip on me didn't loosen. "He's lying, Sophia. He's not who you think he is. He's a monster. This whole thing is a lie. He just wants the USB drive. He wants to destroy you. He kidnapped your sister." His words came out in a rush, a desperate jumble of accusations. My mind was in a state of chaos. Who was telling the truth? Liam, the man who had just burst into my room with a terrifying warning? Or James, the man who had sworn to love me forever? I looked from one to the other, seeing two entirely different versions of reality. Liam's fear felt real, but James's composure felt absolute. James's smile disappeared. He took another step forward, his gaze fixed on Liam's face. "I think it's time for you to leave, Liam," he said, his voice now a low growl. "You're making a scene." Liam backed away, his face a mixture of fear and defiance. "You'll never get away with this, James. I have the evidence. I have the truth." "Do you?" James replied, a chilling glint in his eyes. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metallic object. It was a replica of the USB drive. "You have nothing, Liam. Your little game is over. Liam stared at the object in James's hand, his eyes wide with horror. His jaw dropped. How did you... He stammered. I don't understand. James laughed, a soft, cold sound that sent shivers down my spine. You don't need to understand. All you need to do is get out of here before I call security. He then turned his attention to me, his expression softening instantly. He reached out and gently took my hand. His touch, once so comforting, now felt alien. It's okay, my love. He's just a disgruntled employee. I'll explain everything later. Let's go somewhere private. I looked down at my hand in his. His skin was warm, his grip firm and possessive. I felt a surge of panic. Was this the moment? Was this the end of my life as I knew it? I squeezed the USB drive in my other hand, the one he couldn't see. Just as he began to lead me away, a voice from behind us, filled with quiet authority, broke the tense silence. James Forrester, the police would like to have a word with you. The voice, a quiet but firm baritone, cut through the tense silence like a knife. My heart, which had been in a frantic race, suddenly went still. I looked past James to see a man in a crisp suit standing a few feet away, a police badge clipped to his belt. His face was calm, professional, and entirely unreadable. A second officer stood just behind him, a grim look on his face. James's hand, which was holding mine, instantly went slack. The confident smile he had worn so perfectly just moments ago vanished, replaced by a flicker of shock and disbelief. He turned slowly, his eyes narrowing, as he took in the two men. The mask of a perfect husband and a powerful man was starting to crack. "Officers," he said, his voice now a little strained. "What can I do for you?" The first officer stepped forward, his eyes, dark and penetrating, briefly met mine before settling on James. "Mr. Forrester, we have a warrant for your arrest. We need you to come with us." James let out a short, harsh laugh. "An arrest? This is ridiculous. There must be some mistake. You have the wrong man." He looked back at me, a desperate plea in his eyes. "Sophia, tell them. Tell them who I am." But I didn't say a word. I just stared at him, my mind reeling. The police were here, for him. All the lies, the manipulation, the coldness I had seen in his eyes, it was all real. It wasn't my imagination. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a cold, hard, terrifying truth. Liam, who had been a frozen statue of fear, took a small, hesitant step forward. "It's all in the hard drive," he said, his voice a ragged whisper. "I told you, James, the truth always comes out." James's head snapped back to Liam. His face was a contorted mask of pure, unadulterated fury. "You!" he hissed, taking a step toward him. "You did this!" The second officer moved forward, placing a hand on James's arm. "I wouldn't," he warned. James's eyes, wide with rage, darted back and forth between the officers and Liam. He had been a man who controlled everything. But now he had lost control. He was cornered, and the mask was finally gone. The man I had loved was gone, and in his place was a terrified, cornered animal. "What is this about?" James demanded, his voice now a shaky roar. "What are you arresting me for?" The first officer calmly pulled out a small piece of paper. Financial fraud, money laundering, and the attempted kidnapping of a Miss Julia Petrova. My heart stopped. My sister. Her name, spoken so casually by a stranger, was the final piece of the puzzle. I had been right. It was a trap. All of it. The wedding, the fake love, the key, the USB drive. It was all a carefully planned scheme to get a hold of the information that was about to bring him down. My sister, my only family, had been a pawn in his game. A shiver of pure cold fury ran through me. James's eyes widened. "How did you—" he stammered, his voice trailing off. The officer looked at me. "Your sister is safe, Miss Petrova." She called us. She's the one who gave us the information on his operation. She told us everything. I felt a wave of relief, so powerful it almost brought me to my knees. She was safe. My sister was safe. And James, my perfect, charming husband, was finally going to pay. The officers placed him in handcuffs. His hands, which had just held mine in a possessive grip, now bound behind his back. He looked at me, and in his eyes there was no fear, no anger, no hatred, only a deep, empty madness. It was the look of a man who had lost everything, a man who had been caught in his own web of lies. As they led him away, he turned his head and mouthed a single word to me, a word that chilled me to the bone. As they led him away, James turned his head. His eyes, now devoid of everything but a bottomless emptiness, met mine, and he mouthed a single silent word that I read on his lips. Goodbye. It was not a lover's farewell, nor a last-ditch effort to save face. It was the farewell of a man who knew he was never coming back. And in that moment, looking into his empty eyes, I realized he was broken. All his plans, his perfect life, his empire, it had all collapsed. The officers took him away, and I was left alone in a corridor that, just a minute ago, had been the stage for my worst nightmare. The silence that followed their departure was deafening. I felt the weight I had carried for so long finally lift. It was not only the pain and fear, but the burning sense of betrayal that had consumed me from the inside. I just stood there, unable to move, feeling everything I knew about my life crumble into dust. Soon, Sarah, my best friend, came. She hugged me, and I felt her warmth and presence bring me back to life. She silently led me to the elevator, and we rode down to meet the FBI agent. He told me everything. He said my sister, Julia Petrova, was safe and was already waiting for me. He said they had been waiting for this moment. They were waiting for James Forrester to make the mistake that would allow them to arrest him. And I was their bait. Epilogue: several years passed. I was no longer Sophia Forrester. I was Sophia Petrova again. My sister and I moved from New York to a small town on the California coast. We bought a small house on the edge of the ocean, and every day I woke up to the sound of waves crashing against the rocks. I was no longer working in finance. I opened a small art gallery. I found myself. I found my new path. One day, I saw James Forrester on television. He was giving an interview from prison. He looked old and worn. I felt neither anger nor joy. I felt only a profound sense of compassion. I realized that revenge isn't about making someone suffer. Revenge is about living your life. Revenge is about being happy. Revenge is about being free. I looked up at the sky. It was a brilliant sapphire blue. The sun was shining. I felt the warm wind caress my face. I smelled the ocean. I felt alive. I felt free. I realized that my perfect life was a lie. But my new life was real, and it was so much better.